In the small, unassuming town of Eldridge, where the nights are unusually dark and the stars seem to hide behind a veil of secrecy, a new legend has begun to take root. They speak of him in hushed tones, parents warning their children not to look out their windows after dark for fear of catching sight of the smiling man. He first appeared on a particularly cold night in November, the kind where the wind howls with a voice of its own. Emma, a 10-year-old with a curious streak, was lying awake, her room bathed in the soft glow of a street lamp. She heard a faint scratching at her window like nails on glass, but when she turned to look, there he was. The smiling man stood just outside her window, his face illuminated eerily by the light. His smile was wide, too wide, stretching unnaturally across his face, revealing teeth that were too perfect, too white against the darkness that seemed to cling to him. His eyes, though, were what haunted her dreams. They were hollow, devoid of any human warmth, yet they seemed to look right through to her soul. Emma screamed, and her parents rushed in, but by the time they looked out the window, he was gone. They chalked it up to the vivid imagination of a child, but the next morning, Emma was missing. No trace, no clues, just an open window and the lingering feeling of dread. Days passed, and the smiling man became more than just a story. Every night he appeared at different houses, his smile constant, his intentions clear. Children vanished one by one from locked rooms with no signs of forced entry. The town was gripped by fear, and parents began to board up windows to keep the light out and the darkness in. One night, Jake, a local journalist with a penchant for the supernatural, decided to stake out his own home. He sat in the dark, camera ready, his daughter asleep in her room. The night was still, the silence oppressive, until he heard the familiar scratching. There, at the window, was the smiling man. His smile was even more grotesque up close, his skin pale, almost translucent, as if he were made of the night itself. Jake's camera flashed, capturing the image, but also, it seemed, drawing the smiling man's attention. The smile widened, an impossible stretch, before the creature vanished, leaving behind only the cold air and the echo of laughter too cheerful to be human. The next morning, Jake's daughter was gone, and the only evidence of the night's terror was the chilling photograph, a man who shouldn't exist, smiling as if he knew a secret that would turn your blood to ice. The town began to unravel, fear turning neighbor against neighbor, accusations flying. But then a pattern emerged. Every child taken was returned exactly 7 days later, unharmed but changed. They spoke of a place of endless night, where the smiling man was not alone, but part of a silent, smiling throng. They returned with a piece of that darkness in their eyes, a smile that was not quite theirs, and a reluctance to sleep with the lights off. The smiling man wasn't stealing children, he was sharing his curse, his eternal night. And every night he continued his rounds, his smile a beacon of terror, a promise that the darkness would come for more. Now Eldridge is known not for its peace but for the smiling man, a supernatural entity who has made this town his hunting ground. The windows remain dark, the children are kept close, and the townsfolk pray for the dawn, for in the daylight the smiling man's laughter cannot be heard, but they know with each sunset the game begins anew.